So the three of you who both see the things I post on the Simplerockets subreddit and managed to find your way to the video might remember that I made a post promising to make a tutorial for drop tank shuttle designs. And to that allegation I say, wouldn't it be hilarious if I just didn't do that? In fact, I am laughing so hard that I have accidentally pressed the delete post button. Oops. So, I was looking at the station from 2001, A Space Odyssey, and also just, I guess, all sci-fi movies, and, you know, it's a big ring station, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if I was able to make that in Simplerockets too, but also realistically, so instead of going up on, like, a massive rocket like everyone else does station designs like these, I actually made it modular. So I actually played with the idea first of making it actually like the 2001 A Space Odyssey station with, like, a hangar in the middle, and, like, a big ring spinning around that. The problem with that is it's really hard to do, and I don't want to do it. So, instead, I decided to go with the Spire design, which adds ample room for docking. Well, actually not quite enough, as you'll probably see later. And also, it allows the ring to, I don't know if you could tell this from the design, but I'm going to have the ring be a separate module. I'm going to have it be technically 4 separate modules, but I have the motor part be its own module on top of that. It's going to wrap around the big bulky part of the Spire, and then I'm going to have the ring modules dock to docking ports on the motor module. Anyways, I just added docking ports onto these little stems, as you can see. This was mostly just a prototype design. I knew I wasn't going to actually bring up like 7 or 8 different modules, because I have a life outside of this game, and I don't want to do that. Also, here's a pretty interesting thing I feel like I did. I didn't want to have to deal with 5,000 million parts, so instead I decided to go into this new strategy for making cargo compartments, which I like to call the lazy method, where you just make a fuel tank, and then you take 2 of like the Zrev orbital capsule things. I don't know. It's one of the capsules. It looks like the Soviet Soyuz one, and then you just clip them into it, so you don't see one of the ends, and then you make it a similar color to the fuel tank, and then it looks good. And it also has windows and everything too, so it's a nice bonus. So anyways, as you can see, I was surprised. I thought it wasn't going to be able to rotate well at all because it's 2 separate modules, but it worked perfectly fine. Besides when you're trying to rotate it. For some reason, when you try to rotate it, it shakes around quite a lot. Anyways, after I had the basic design figured out, the next thing to do was figure out how to put it into modules that I could dock to it. The ring doesn't work as it is, as you can tell. I also wanted to make sure that the ring modules, which were going to be pretty massive if I didn't fold them up, I wanted to make sure there was a way I could have to unfold them and fold them when they're in the fairing that wasn't using motors or piston, because the problem with those is those jiggle around a lot, so I want to minimize using those. So I ended up going with like a docking port method, and I only went with 3 rim modules. I probably could have gone with 4 and still been able to with it, but I think 3 is a good looking number. 3 looks good, and always does. Anyways, I just added on some fuel tanks, and I made a nice little curve. But as you can see, I added like a curvature set of fuel tanks, and then added a docking port onto that. So what I could do is I could just have the side cargo compartments of the rim module be on like the stem or some other part of the payload, and then they could detach and dock on the side, so it wouldn't take up a fucking cartoonishly large fairing. As I told you before, making the side modules point towards the center mass is hard, so it kind of looks triangular. It took me a while to figure out how to fix that. Especially since editing this, I couldn't use symmetry. I had to just like duplicate it around every time because of the way symmetry in this game works. But I ended up getting it to look pretty good and, you know, nice and stable and cool. Anyways, for the solution for the command ships, this is kind of hard to show because I keep speeding past it. But what I did was I had what I wanted to be the primary control point was the command ship on the Spire, and then all the other modules would be docked onto that afterwards. And what I did was I had command ships on side detachers. And they're still in a centralized location. And then what I did was I just detached those command ships, and when they left in the load-in range, so when they got like 10 kilometers away, they despawned, and now the new module that was docked to the old module would kind of get all its parts assumed to the old module. Basically, that's a long way of saying I didn't have to deal with as many command ships, which is always the main problem with stations. Like, I accidentally switch to a different command ship and it starts spinning out of control, and then I have to reload a quick save or something, and it's really annoying, and I don't want to have to go through that this time. And then I skipped forward to when the modules are all put together. Wait, McDoidschfeen, you skipped over a bunch of stuff. This is clearly cheating. I'm gonna dislike, leave 15 mean comments, report for child abuse, and subscribe just so I can unsubscribe and hurt your feelings. But anyways, basically what happened there was I was rendering the footage after I had recorded it, and that takes like 15 hours or whatever because my laptop is crap and I'm using a software that takes forever to render. Anyways, halfway through, or 40% through, it decided to crash. So the 40% of the footage where all the magic happened also ended up being the 40% of the footage where there's no sound or visual or smell or any of the other senses for that matter. In fact, I forgot to put that in any of the video. But as you can see here, I'm designing the rocket. Obviously, I'm not commentating over it because rockets are the most boring thing you can make in the game. It's a game about rockets. I don't need to explain it to you. What? I'm expecting you to have a brain larger than that of a 5-year-old. I mean, come on, it's not rocket science. So anyways, on to the final launch. What happened to all the testing, you might ask? Well, it's really boring, and I don't want to show it. You're gonna start to notice a pattern of me just not showing half the stuff I do, but this isn't a tutorial. You don't need to know what I did. Anyways, I feel like the spire looks really nice on top of a second stage, and also you don't need to know what I did. It's fine if I leave out footage. Shut up, okay? Stop leaving criticism and mean comments. Anyways, I just went into an 80-kilometer orbit because I was planning on bringing an SSTO to the station. I wasn't planning. I did. And the higher the orbit, the more fuel I have to add in the SSTO. It's not a problem for rockets to put the station in a higher orbit, but it is a problem for the SSTO because it makes it much harder to dock to, or rendezvous with. Docking is the same. Anyways, this one I had a pretty funky ascent, I guess. And this one doesn't look nearly as cool on top of a rocket, but even without its coolness, I got into orbit nonetheless and just did the lazy method where I wait like 16 days in orbit instead of actually launching on an optimal trajectory, and I got a 600-meter approach. I've gotten pretty good at docking over the years. I don't know. I feel like when the game came out, docking was near impossible. That might have just been because like everyone in the community was incredibly bad at the game, but also it was really buggy. I don't know. I'm just going off on a tangent here. Anyways, as you can see, we're approaching the spire part of the station. I just undocked the module, and it kind of looks like a spider now that I think of it. I don't know why I had to say that. And then as you can see, this is the camera shot. I clipped a camera inside of the docking port, and it is so easy, as you can see here. You just target the other docking port and move towards it. It's not that hard. I did have a chip. I don't know if I know. I don't say that in the last thing, but I do have a chip on top of the second stages so I can deorbit them and, I don't know, land it on some poor Chinese village, something like that. Alright, on to the next launch. This was going to be our first ring section. The launches are just going to get more and more boring after this, kids, because it's 3 more of the same launches. So anyways, the ring rockets obviously, the rocket for the rim parts are much better looking. I mean, they're longer, and they're much harder to fly. Anyways, I got another encounter, and I tried to get as close as possible with the rocket engines. I've noticed the fast-forward footage looks a lot more like agile than it actually is in the game. Trust me, I'm not actually this good of a rocket scientist or whatever you want to call me. It's just fast-forward so it looks better. So what I did was I just zoomed in over there and targeted the docking port. And I went onto the camera, and I docked to it, I think. I actually spent like 2 hours trying to do this because the problem was I didn't have powerful enough RCS, so I couldn't like control it well because the docking ports, I don't know if you know this, but their connection's really wobbly, so if you want to have a secure connection, you have to use multiple docking ports, which I didn't do. So I ended up having to go back and forth because I didn't have enough fuel and I didn't have enough power to dock effectively. And I spent about 2 hours before realizing, hey, this just isn't going to work as it is. So I ended up like adding a ton more RCS fuel, and also I think I quadrupled the power of the RCS thrusters, and that worked. So I wasted 2 hours of my life, and that's fun. So anyways, getting the encounters pretty easy, except for the fact I had a bunch of stuff still in orbit. I think I might have failed to deorbit one of the boosters or something. I think this might have been the one where I had a problem with my normal and anti-normal one, but I didn't realize it till I got there. But anyways, once you get within like 2 kilometers, you can see it, so you don't have to get like a sub-kilometer encounter. It doesn't really matter that much. Anyways, I unfolded it. For some reason, sometimes you can unfold it and you don't have to use any RCS at the side tanks, and sometimes you need to, otherwise it'll just float away. As you can see, the second one worked perfectly fine, but the first one didn't. I just drained the RCS from the side tanks into the front tank because I didn't want to run out of RCS. I was sick of doing that, and then I docked to the thing. It's pretty simple. It's straightforward. It's the same exact thing, but I do think it's a really cool shot. I don't know if you noticed, I'm actually playing this in ESS, which is Enhanced Solar System for the people who don't know what that is. Everyone knows what it is. I shouldn't have to explain this, except for people who don't, I guess. Actually, I'm not really sure how knowledgeable the community... I'm not really sure how knowledgeable everyone is on the fact you can download custom systems. But yeah, ESS is sort of... ESS is just the stock system, the stock current system, because they're about to revamp the entire system. But enhanced. They add clouds into the cube map, and they make the planet look more beautiful. And also, they just make the deserts less red. I don't know why, but the desert on the stock Drew is just pinkish, and I don't know why. It doesn't look good. In fact, if you just make the grass a little darker, the ocean's a little darker, and the desert's a little more yellow, the stock Drew looks so much better. I don't know why they made the decision to make it pink. Anyways, now I had way too much debris in orbit, so I actually had to go through every single craft and delete the one that wasn't, the station, or the thing I was about to dock with the station. After I did that, I just got an encounter. It was pretty easy from there. This one I had a huge inclination problem. I had to do a relatively huge normal burn. If you don't know, that means burning northwards or upwards. It wasn't actually huge, relatively meaning in a low Earth orbit environment when you're trying to dock with the station, so it was more like a 15 meter per second burn. It's not really anything important. And then I docked at the station here. Again, this one I guess was a bit harder because I had to navigate with the engines to the right side of the station because I couldn't just dock on any docking port like I could before. I had to dock to the specific one that was left. Yeah. I'm also looking back now, and I got pretty lucky every single time with the docking, because if they were a little bit off, it would look a lot weirder than it did, but I got pretty lucky when I docked, and I got the orientation right. Anyways, that was a pretty cool shot. I like how the station looked incomplete. I kind of like how it looked incomplete more than I like it now. Not that the station looks bad. This is by far my best looking station. Most of my stations look ugly as all hell, or I never made them. In fact, I think I've only made 3 stations. Anyways, I had to make an SSTO. Now, my first design was a VTOL. I just thought I'd show this. I actually had a pretty good way of making it lift off stably, but unfortunately, getting into the normal flight trajectory was very inefficient, so I decided against using a VTOL. Maybe I'll make another episode about making a VTOL SSTO, who knows. But anyways, on to the main design. I actually got a bit inspired by a Mark III SSTO, not one that he actually used in a video, but just one he mentioned in passing. I once again used the same crew compartment design. I didn't do the thing I did here. I actually changed it up so it would weigh a lot less. But yeah, I just used the Rev. I don't know what it is. It's a weird name. Cockpit. Oh, here, as you can see, I just made a tank really thin, and then I used some fuel nuts and clipped them into the side. And I feel like it kind of looks like a crew department of like a plane or some of the things in KSP, especially if you make the window color have a mission and be like yellow or whatever. Anyways, then I just added on a tapering off nose. I did end up having to make this a lot longer. Fun fact, SSTOs are really hard to make in this game. I mean, I've made them a lot, so I wasn't worried about making this SSTO, because I've done it a lot. But you shouldn't think that they're easy to make. You need to make them big, and it's hard to do, and I don't like doing it, but I did it anyways. As you can see, I did the internal cockpit design. By the way, if you notice like my game looks any different, that's actually because the Steam beta release, so I guess probably by the time this video comes out, based on my standards, the current game has this new graphics option, and maybe it won't be on mobile, I have no idea, called SSAO. It's called Ambient Inclusion, but it's got some weird acronym that has nothing to do with ambient inclusion, and it just adds like shadows on the sides of parts. And I don't know why, I just think it looks really cool. Anyways, I tried to add on a G meter, but it really fucked up. Like when I was in space, it said like, oh, 0.33 Gs, and then I turned on the engine and we're like negative or something. I don't know, it was weird. But the point is, it didn't work. But I spent a lot of time trying to do it. So now I have a lot of footage of me trying to do it over and over to commentate over. So what should I say in this space where I have nothing else to say? Probably nothing. Right. Anyways, I guess here I'll just talk about like random things I want to do. So this video is cool and all, but there's this one video I want to make. I'm not gonna spoil it. That I think is gonna be really cool. I need to wait for when the new system comes out because it involves going interplanetary, and I don't want the video to become outdated in like a week after it comes out because it's gonna take a lot of work to make. But it'll be really cool, and hopefully you guys will like it too, and it'll take off. You better like it. But anyways, then I put together the crew. I specifically made the pilot orange so I could distinguish him from the crewmates, just in case, I needed to distinguish them for like a witch trial or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, then I, like I said, this was inspired by a Mark III shuttle, and it was basically a fuselage like this, and then it had wings that were interrupted by a block of tanks. I don't know how to describe rockets and planes. It's really hard to do. Anyways, and I'll just describe it as the footage goes. And I added on engines onto those, and then I added on really large horizontal stabilizers. I don't know why, but large horizontal stabilizers, as dumb as they are, and they make you pitch up too much, they're really cool looking. I made the engine air spike, of course, because it's an SSTO, and I felt like it. And also, they take up a lot less space, and I think they weigh a lot less, so they're kind of an efficient thing to use if you're not going to be dumping your engines halfway through the mission. They're just the golden engine to use for SSTOs. Of course, we don't have rapiers like we do in KSP, so It doesn't really matter what engine you use. It's still going to be highly inefficient compared to what you can do in KSP. You'll notice here that the SSTO looks very stubby, or anyone who's made a rocket SSTO knows this SSTO looks way too stubby to actually work. And in fact, you are correct. It didn't have nearly enough fuel. I mean, it was only like 800 meters per second off, or like 500 meters per second off. But the problem with the rocket equation is if you're like 800 meters per second off and you're using an SSTO, that means you have to add an absolute shit ton of fuel. Like, more than I can afford in my lifetime. But anyways, I did end up getting it up to about 5,000 meters a second, which is what you need to get into orbit and hopefully dock with the station. I added on moving canards, or not moving, rotating canards and a hind wheel, so when I pitched up, bump the tail on the ground. And I think it's really nice. And you're about to see it in motion. As you can see, it barely took off, but yeah, that's how the hind wheel worked. I didn't actually have to use it that much in this launch because I actually upped the TWR quite a lot, so the takeoff wasn't as hard to do, but I guess I probably would have bumped the tail on the ground and left it explosion if I didn't have the real wheel anyways. As you can see, the takeoff was pretty smooth. I did have to pause a few times to like set up the autopilot so it stopped going back and forth. And basically, my strategy with SSTOs is to just pitch up to like 70, 65 degrees and just wait until the atmosphere is about below 100 grams per meter cubed. And then I start tilting over. I also have to change the autopilot by raising the proportional and raising the derivative. And that will hopefully pilot it well. If you have enough delta V, that probably should be the most optimal way to fly an SSTO. I don't really know. I've made a few SSTOs, but I'm not the expert on the matter. I don't know. Ask Matt Lown. Anyways, here is the actual launch. I thought that launch before was the actual launch, but I guess I was wrong. Anyways, you'll notice at the start I actually had to get the astronaut out of the craft to get him in the craft. Because there's this weird bug where like the camera clips into the fuel tank below it if you don't do that first. Also, I skipped over a lot of the footage. I don't know if you noticed. I didn't show me adding on a docking for RCS. That's because I was playing Terraria with a bud, as you all know, joining a Terraria world through Steam is harder than the liquor Sergei Korolev drank before designing the N1 Soviet moon disaster. So, anyways, I finally got in after a third try, and I said, "Wow, I'm in," and I'm loading in. He took that to mean he should exit out of Terraria, which proceeded to crash my game. Then crashed my laptop, which had a bunch of footage pauses on it, and that footage happened to be me adding the docking port and RCS thrusters and whatnot onto it, which meant you didn't get to see that. Anyways, it's not really important. You get to see it anyways, and the main design of the shuttle showed, so it doesn't really matter that much. I did have some weird problems with like the direction the plane autopilot was pointing when I reloaded a quick save. I don't know why that happened. It didn't happen again later. Once again, the rendezvous and docking, well, the docking wasn't, but the rendezvous was really easy. I always try, by the way, if you're ever going in for a docking, always try to get the close encounter on the morning side, very early morning. Because if it's a hard thing to dock, you're going to be taking all day and maybe all night to dock that shit. It's fucking hard. Also, I forgot to add a camera onto the docking port, so this ended up being much, much harder than it had to be. Like, 100 times, because like I said, docking is so much easier if you have it, especially if you're controlling. Also, if you're wondering how I was able to do this so easily, what I did was I had a command ship right next to the docking port, and I had the RCS set to that, so it would be controlled by that. And I just took control of that so I could point at it, and then I just docked it from there. I clipped my camera, I don't know if you saw that, into the fuel tank, and what that did was allow me to dock without having to have a camera on the docking port, which, like I said, I didn't have, and I didn't want to have to refly the whole mission. So then I got the station positioned for a cool photo op to post on the subreddit, and that's all fun and games, but now I have to get the crew out for their long extended stay. And that's actually hard because when you get the crew out, for some reason it like tries to flip over the station that you were previously controlling, and that's annoying, because I have to get out the crew many times, and that means I have to switch back to the old control point of the station to keep it from flipping over and being really fucking annoying. And it ended up being really fucking annoying. Anyways, I got out all the crew. Obviously, they're all members of America Colon, so I don't have to worry about risking their lives. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this. I can probably talk about it now. This is the boring part of the video. But I run a cult named America Colon, which you can join by subscribing. And also, all my astronauts are a part of it. Fictional cult, of course. I don't run a real cult. Please don't come after me, FBI. It's kind of fictional. So I spun up the station. As you'll notice, I didn't get the pilot out, and that is for a very intentional reason. You'll notice later on. You'll notice spinning up the station was a lot harder with the SST on it because it messed with where the center of mass was. So it led to a lot of jiggling, as you kind of see there. But I ended up getting it, and there's this cool shot of the station spinning. It's kind of jiggling around, but it's also spinning, which is really cool. All right, it's time for my water break. I'm back. God, this B-roll just goes on and on. I didn't realize how long I recorded this for. I think I legitimately just like got up and walked away when I did this. Like this might go. Oh! I ended it. Okay, good. It all ended eventually. Anyways, getting out the astronauts, in fact, was harder than getting them in. Because not only did I have the problems before, but I didn't know where they were. And so I had to go through every single module and click to see where the crew is. But the problem was my game was lagging because I run this game on recording while I'm recording the game while simultaneously being on a crappy pleb laptop with around 500 or 600, 800, maybe like 1,000 parts. I don't remember. But the point is, I have a crappy laptop, I'm recording, and this is a lot of parts. So my game lagged out, and it was hard to do anything. But don't worry, I ended up getting all the crew home back and safe. Well, that's actually a lie. I'll show you more on that a bit later. Yeah, I got one of the crew out, and what happened was they didn't spawn in. Like, they just didn't exist. And that was confusing, but you know what? It's the first casualty of the mission, so I feel like we just got to get going, run from our murders and steals and stuff like that. Missing person, who cares? Who cares about that? Anyways, I got a cool shot of the shuttle leaving the station. Anyways, then I just lowered my orbit down to just above where the Kármán line is in Simplerockets 2. I think in ESS it's like 58 kilometers, so I went to 59 kilometers. I don't remember what is in the stock system. It might be like right at 60 kilometers, so maybe don't go to 59 kilometers. I don't know. And then I warped around. Obviously, I had tested out the shuttle a lot more, but like I said, the footage is gone of that, so I knew exactly where I wanted to re-enter for the way I was going to do it. And then I just pitched up to 40 degrees. I did the classic way of re-entering. I've shown this in other videos where I did like the shuttles, and this is a lot easier because it's a lot less of a heavy class SSTO or shuttle, I guess. So I just kind of... So obviously I wanted to get as low as possible. So what you do, by the way, if you're entering an SSTO, let's see if you're doing it the way I am, is you just point at 45 degrees, and if you want to go down or lower your vertical velocity, you can tilt to the left or the right, and that'll lower you. But if you go you have to be careful, because if you go too low, you'll explode. There's something I like to call the explosion zone. So you're going to want to watch your vertical velocity and keep track of that, and make sure you're slowing down fast enough to reach the landing strip in time, but also that you're not exploding and killing everyone on the craft. That's a pretty important thing. So anyways, I don't know if you noticed, but you can't actually target the runways in this game. So I actually spawned into craft right before I left to do this. Right before I did the mission, so I could easily fly it. Also, fun fact, this thing's impossible to fly in the lower atmosphere when it's empty on fuel. It is like the twitchiest thing ever. But anyways, I just got out the landing gear, and I think I cut past it, but this is like the second try, and I landed it. That's actually not slow motion, that's real speed. The footage just looks laggy because it is laggy. And wow, that does it. We did the mission, but there's one question remaining. That one disappeared astronaut. Now, all my scientist friends are claiming that had to have happened due to witchcraft. Now, I don't generally believe in magic and witchcraft and stuff, but if all my scientist friends say it, I have to listen to them. So, of course, after the SSTO landed, I had all the crewmates, not the pilot because he was never on the station. I had them arrested, subdued, and put up to the stake to be burned as a witch. This is a respectable space agency. I can't have witches running around. Anyways, so in the name of America, of course, combustion in this universe only exists in the burning hot, high-pressure environment of a rocket engine. So I had to go a bit overkill on this one, but whatever it takes to send their corrupt souls back to hell. So now that our space company is safe from the existential threat of Satan, let's get on to the end cards. Whoa, you're here and I'm here at the same time? What a coincidence. Well, anyways, while you're here, it'd be nice if you could get off your fucking lazy ass for once and hit the really big red subscribe button. If you have an IQ over 25, you should have already done it, and if you have an IQ below 25, you're either a wet blanket or News 222. And either way, you weren't welcome here in the first place. And yes, I'm making that joke knowing that it'll fly over 99% of your heads. There should be 2 videos on your screen by now. Now, I will warn you that not watching them will put you on my witchcraft watch list, so definitely don't do that. Alright, it's been good. Ciao.